Available this morning.
Good morning, everybody.
We are lucky to have with us Jon Stout from the airport. John's the airport manager. He runs the day-to-day operations and all the projects out the airport. And since he's come in 2002, as we just talked about, he's had to hit the ground running. In case you didn't know, they have 5 airlines as well as an industrial park, 385 based aircraft out there, 26 commercial tenants, and 5 rental car agencies. And he's, as I said, been managing since 2002. And as part of the projects, he's been involved in running a $55 million RSA improvement project, which he completed a couple of years ago, and the airport terminal modernization project, which was a $40 million expansion of the airport. And all of those services we've really enjoyed here in the county. And as we were just talking about, it's really changed the landscape for us here. Jon did grow up in Sonoma County. What high school did you go to, Jon?
I went to Pioneer High.
Pioneer, great. It goes. I love. Pioneer's always had its own, remodeling. Yeah.
Yes, it was a little bit different when I came back.
Yeah. You got his bachelor's degree in airport administration at University of North Dakota, and his master's in business administration at Northwestern Missouri State University. Prior to coming to Sonoma, he was the airport manager at the Grosse Ile Municipal Airport in Detroit. So I'm sure, Sonoma County's got to be a little bit nicer, at least weather-wise, than Detroit. But despite that, he has taken his family up to Ukiah and hides away on a 40-acre ranch, which tells you something about what it's like to run an airport. So, Jon, we want to welcome you to the meeting, and we turn the dais over to you.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. We like to get out in the community and talk about what's going on at the airport. I'm here to get you the information you'd like to know. Okay. It's sharing. I got a crash notice. Is it?
I can still
see it.
Yeah, I can see the first slide anyway.
That was a weird notice.
Oh, I think we lost your slides if you want to try sharing them one more time.
All right.
Okay, you're up and running.
All right. That was very weird. Crashed. I haven't had that happen in a long time.
I think that happened when Scott Shadler came on. I think I'm going to blame him.
All right. So the airport's been around since 1939, and we are an enterprise fund within the County of Sonoma under the Public Infrastructure Department. And I do report directly to Johannes Hoverts. We've had an interesting history on our operations. We've had air service of some kind since 1947. Some of it good, some of it bad, and a few breaks in there. Last year, we ended the year with 92,000, almost 93,000 total operations. General aviation accounted for roughly 73,000. Airlines and jet traffic were both just under 10,000 each. And I'd like to bring up our peak year was quite some time ago for operations. An operation is one takeoff or one landing. We peaked in our operational count in 1978 at 206,000 operations. So that was the heyday of general aviation. And over time, general aviation has slowly shrunk. And you can see in the 07-08 timeframe during the recession, we took a big decline in our operational count. We lost a fair number of pilots that aviation was just too expensive to keep up with, and they got out of flying. Going back to our passenger numbers, we had Alaska Air come into the market in 2007 after a 6-year break from the loss of United. And since then, prior to COVID, we had 10 years of year-over-year increase. We finished 2022 as our best year ever, with just under 615,000 total passengers. And so far this year, we're at 183,000 passengers, which is up 7% over last year. And that looks like it's going to be holding steady at about that 7 to 10% is our expectation for the year. So as we were doing the terminal project, it felt like we were building the plane as we were trying to fly. And we are down to 3 carriers at the moment. We did lose United last year, and we lost AHA. Unfortunately, they went out of business, and United had a pilot shortage along with aircraft shortage and had to pull out of our market. And they also pulled out of many other markets. Alaska is the dominant carrier at just over 60% of the market, followed by Avelo, then American. We currently have 11 destinations, with Alaska serving the most at 6, American doing Phoenix and Dallas, and Avelo, they're the newest carrier in Santa Rosa. They've been doing Burbank and Las Vegas. They added Palm Springs last fall, and Palm Springs was seasonal. They will be stopping that flight on June 19th. And to keep the aircraft in the market and due to the response the market has had, they will be starting Redmond flights on a summer seasonal basis starting June 23rd. Excuse me. And we always work with them and other partners for future opportunities. Our key destinations we're trying to get is Denver, Chicago, Boise, and I've been trying for 10 years to get Hawaii, but I can't find the right airline with the right airplanes to make that route work. But with COVID and the pilot shortage across the industry and the smaller airplanes not returning, that's been very difficult for us to get more service. Avelo is flying 737 aircraft, and last fall, Alaska started flying 737s in Seattle, and they started flying that on San Diego. So our market can support larger aircraft, but most airlines want to start new markets with as few seats possible to reduce risk. And when we go meet with the airlines, they're about numbers. They want to know that they're going to be able to make money in our market. And one of those metrics we use is we look at where passengers are coming from, how many per day. We do a data survey poll from the DOT data every 2 years. And so when you buy a ticket, you put in your information, you supply a zip code, and we can tell that you bought a ticket, say, from San Francisco to New York. So we can capture that data, and we can also capture that for visitors. And from that, there's over 7,000 passengers per day each way that come to the North Bay. We consider our catchment area, or the area of passengers are likely to use our service, to be north of San Rafael. So the northern part of Marin County, Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake, and most northern Napa. And we do get a fair number of passengers out of Humboldt. So that's our market area, and that's where this number reflects. And that's roughly 44% residents, 56% visitors. From that, we then boil it down, because it goes back to those numbers. We look at how many passengers per day are going to which markets, so we can start showing what the opportunities are for us. Like Los Angeles, that includes the whole Metroplex at 1,100 passengers per day each way, and 84% of the passengers are using other airports. So we do have service to several airports in the Los Angeles basin area, but we're just capturing a small percent. Then if we look at New York's a little tougher. That wouldn't be that's not really a possibility. But Denver at 214 passengers per day. And this is what we're still capturing some that are connecting out of Santa Rosa, but there's still 92% of that that's going to other airports. And when we meet with those airlines, we provide that information, and each carrier looks at it slightly different. It's got to fit into their strategic business model and what it's going to do for them on competition from a Bay Area airport. And usually we have to overcome, when we talk to an airline, say they have service to that market out of San Francisco, we need to provide them data that shows that it's not going to poach passengers they already have. And with the data we do get, we can also tell which airline they're using, and we can say how many people are using their existing services. And most of the time they're not. So we can show that people are using somebody else to get to that market. So you have a potential to capture more passengers. It usually takes quite some time to get new markets. I've had routes that have taken 8 years to get them interested. It's not a fast industry when you're a smaller airport. Unfortunately, we need them more than they need us. So there's a lot of other opportunities out there for them. Any questions on that? I know it's kind of deep, but.
So these figures, I mean, while you fly to Los Angeles and San Diego, you don't, and you fly to Seattle, I guess, right?
Yes.
You fly to Vegas. Yeah, you would think. And the other ones, you don't fly to Denver now, right?
No, we don't. United did that pre-COVID and they did not return it after COVID.
So those figures are, I mean, when you see a percentage being us, I guess, is just something that's where there's a connecting flight someplace.
Yes.
Okay.
So somebody's found a way to connect from Santa Rosa through a different hub. You know, like I'm going to a conference tomorrow in Denver.
Yeah.
I'm taking Alaska, connecting through Seattle.
Yeah.
And it's still faster than driving to the Bay Area.
Yeah, right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you tell the breakdown on travelers of leisure visitors versus business?
That's a little harder. Pre-COVID, we worked with the Tourism Bureau and we did some passenger surveys. And pre-COVID, it was close to about a 45% business versus 55 leisure. Since COVID, the business traveler traffic has decreased, and we don't have a really solid number on that right now, but it's probably in that 30 to 35%. It's been slowly coming back. It just hasn't returned because people are using what we're doing today. A lot of Zoom and other methods have been employed during COVID, but it's starting to come back.
Perfect. Thank you.
And with our growth, we completed an economic impact statement for the airport. That was last fall. And we did it based on the 2021 numbers. And at the time we had 10 daily average departures. We're very seasonal in our market. So we see a ramp up of flights during the summer. January, February is our slowest time, dropping by about a third per day. In 2022, we averaged 13 departures per day, but it was a $228 million economic impact in Sonoma County and almost 1,800 jobs. That doesn't grow much when you get outside of Sonoma County. That increased to 231 million when you looked at outlying counties. And in the county general plan, we have a daily departure limit of 21 per day. And then if we get to that number, we'd be at about a $273 million economic impact. We have a very aggressive capital program for the next 5 to 7 years. And depending on the year, that ranges from $5 to $15 million per year. And that'll contribute another $33 million of economic impact and 169 jobs. And our aviation commission, when we presented to them, wanted to know, what does that mean for the whole county? And I thought the airport by itself being 0.8% of the total economic output for the county, I thought it was a big number considering the size of our operation. All right, now there we go. And we've been very busy with capital projects. Everybody's aware of our terminal projects. We're almost done. We're in the last 60 days of the project. And this is mostly just some photos to kind of orient you and show some progression. Hopefully everybody's come through the terminal and see the new gate space and baggage claim. We get a lot of positive comments, and I'm really looking forward to the day we'll have a real front door. So right now everybody gets to come in the back door and get confused and look at the backside of the tower. We've gotten great response to our aircraft in the terminal. We worked with the Pacific Coast Air Museum and Craig Schulz. I had a vision when we were designing this that I wanted an aircraft hanging somewhere somehow in the terminal, and ideally having the Red Baron and World War I flying ace Snoopy doing a dogfight. But we had a hard time figuring out how to do that. And the Peanuts Museum and Foundation, they were kind of resistant at first because they're like, there was never a dogfight in any of the comic strips. You can't do it. Luckily, Craig is one of our tenants, and working with him, he's like, I've got the Red Baron in my hangar. Really? Yeah, we did the dogfight at the Hall of Flowers in 2007. And the museum's got the Sopwith Camel. So we worked with Craig and the museum and the original artist. They reconditioned the aircraft. He helped with the Peanuts Museum to get them to approve it because he's like, wait a minute. If you remember the movie we did, there's a dream sequence of Snoopy having a dogfight. And so we were able to get that approved. And then in the corner where we have Snoopy on the doghouse, he's gotten approval from Disney to be able to allow us to run the clip of that dream sequence. And so we'll have that playing next to the doghouse. And another fun feature was at a conference on airports. Our architects were there. We were looking at furniture. That's fun going around a conference, trying all kinds of airport chairs. And one of the booths, they had one of these trees. And I think I freaked our architect out and said, I want a tree in my terminal. We worked with them, we got the trees, and now we're working with the museum. They now have a big red kite stuck in the tree, tying back to the Peanuts theme. We also worked with the museum. Every restroom has a tile mosaic of one of the characters designating the restrooms. And we have an automated exit lane, and we call this the Peanuts on Parade area. And we did this to get a sense of movement and try and keep people moving through the exit. It's caused a little bit of delay because they want to look at the characters, but we like that fun part. The county does have an art ordinance where they want to require so much of the project be dedicated to art. And because we are the Charles Schulz Airport, I was able to argue, no, we have to embrace our Snoopy. So it made it a lot easier for us. And we are on track. The front of the terminal will open up late June. We have a wine bar that's in the works for the gate area, as well as an expansion of the limited service food options in the gate, an outdoor patio between the tent and the new build that's being poured right now. All of that work should be done by the last week of July. And we'll have other opportunities for people to have a last moment to enjoy a glass of wine before they get on the aircraft. So very excited to get the project wrapped up. We've been working on it since 2019. But it also leads to we're squeezing the stress ball and things are popping out. Our next issue is our airline apron. In 2015, we rebuilt 2 of the parking spaces in concrete. These other 2 are on asphalt. Looks like I got kicked off again.
You lose John?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me get back to the screen. Sorry about that. So this asphalt was built in the 1960s and it's starting to fail. So we have to keep the small ones on these 2 pads here. We are in design right now and contractor selection for a project to rebuild that. We're hoping later this fall to start actual construction. And we will be going to a total of 6 parking spots.
I don't know if you can hear us, but we just lost you again. It's John.
Think.
I just messaged him directly. Maybe he's getting.
Yeah. I'm sure he's not hearing us, but he's probably knows he's off at this point.
Yes, I saw he was just in the waiting room, so I let him back in.
Okay, cool.
See if that works out. There we go. I think we have you back now, John.
All right, well, it's saying another participant is sharing.
There
There we go.
That's Shadwick again.
But unfortunately, as much as I'd like to, we can't control the airline schedules. We've had times last year where we have 5, 6 airline aircraft on the grass. So we've had times where unfortunately passengers get to sit on the airplane for minutes while they wait for a spot to open. This construction
Oh, sorry, looks like we lost your slides again.
Well, it's good because I'm getting to the end.
I can see the slides still. I just don't hear him now.
If you weren't before, you are now, right?
Right. Yeah, we're going to bail on this.
Mhm.
The other project we're working on, our rental cars have grown just as much as our airline passenger traffic. And so it's getting very cramped for them. They're using 5 different areas of our parking lots to store, stage, and return and move cars. We're working on a consolidated rental car facility that's in design. We're hoping to break ground next year. If you're aware, as you come into the airport, there's a large grassy field. We're looking at using that area, so it's just east of our long-term A parking lot. We would be building an area with 226 spaces, a maintenance area, a detail area. We're still working with the county. The rental car agencies really want a small fuel island, but the county passed the gas station ban, and the airport is included in that. They made an exception for the airport to include us. They were allowing fleet stations, but they said the airport can't. So that rental car agencies are challenging the board on that. So we'll see where that goes. But that should make things a lot easier. The other piece that we're going to be working on is getting all the rental car traffic outside of the loop so they don't go through the entire loop in front of the terminal. And we're working to get the rental car long-term A parking lot to exit, so they exit out before the terminal, and we're not having everybody go through the terminal. And then mentioned that we've got other projects in the works. We'll be doing a perimeter fence upgrade. We're working on design for a new aircraft rescue firefighting building. The airport provides fire services for a crash rescue. We're just wrapping up an overlay on our main taxiway. That project will be done next week. We're starting the planning work for an overlay and rehab of our main runway. That'll be in about 4 years. And we're working with the FAA on a siting study for a new air traffic control tower. We've identified 4 sites on the airport. The preferred location is right next to the current tower, but they have to run that through computer simulations to make sure the cab gets the optimum views of the airfield. Once that is done, then we can start the design. And with luck, we'll be in construction in about 4 to 5 years. And that is the formal part, and I'll be happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing so it'll stop doing weird things.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Man, as we said in the beginning, you've had a lot on your plate and you've really done a wonderful job for us. I mean, I have been out there to see it. I think it's fantastic. I love all the artwork that you've incorporated. The whole airplanes in the air looks fantastic. So I'll open it up to questions. Does anybody have anything out there, Scott?
Yeah. What about private aircraft operations? Julie and Josh Hochberg are good friends, and I know that their business is really expanded, and I think there's some other operators. Can you maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yes, so we have two fixed base operators. They provide the fueling, hangarage, and maintenance services for all aircraft. Sonoma Jet Center's the larger of the two, and they are working on a new development opportunity. We've been kind of stuck in the processing side for a couple of years. COVID slowed it down. With the museum moving to a new location on the airport, that freed up an area, and they're looking at developing potentially 40 small hangars and constructing a couple larger hangars. But it's a complex project because it involves removing existing hangars, and those tenants, of course, aren't real pleased. So it's, where do we move to? We're hoping that they can break ground in about 2 to 3 years, because they still have to do the environmental impact information. We also have a couple corporate operators like VineJet, Solaris. They do mostly managed hangars. They're also looking to expand. We're looking at opening up an area on the south side of the airport for future development and sending out a request for information. We're very landlocked on the east side of the airport, and looking to other parts of the airport. They all have environmental challenges. Most airports seem to be really good lands for endangered things. We have salamander habitat, a couple endangered flowers on the airport. And so it takes time for us to go through that process to make sure we're doing it right.
All right. Anybody else out there? Jeff?
Thanks, John, for the presentation. I'll concur, the new terminal looks great. I'm curious for commercial flyers. It seems like there is capacity based on the historical data to add either more carriers or more flights, but I'm curious if that's something that the airport is actively courting. And I know you probably can't share and don't have a crystal ball, but I'm just curious what your sense is of where the industry is trending, and if you're hopeful that we'll be able to get to more places from this airport in the future.
The industry right now is trending a little bit downward. During COVID, there was about 40 airports that lost total service that have not come back. And there's still airports losing service as of this year. It's smaller communities, less population, and the airlines are trending to larger aircraft. So they're trending from a 50-seat smaller jet for those smaller markets to now a 70 to 76-seat jet. And a lot of those communities just can't support that extra 20 to 25 seats. We've been able to demonstrate that we can support those additional seats. Alaska, with the introduction of the 737s and Avelo using 737s, they range from 135 to 188 seats, depending on the model. And we're able to fill those. So it goes back to those numbers. You got to prove it. But during COVID, there was a large retirement of pilots. So those that were close to retirement retired early. And it takes a while to build that pipeline, because aviation is very expensive to get your commercial ratings and start flying for an airline. So it's tougher for smaller markets, but given our size of community, this population, the desirableness of the destination, we are doing very well. We're one of the few airports that is up out of COVID, considering we're up 35% from pre-COVID. We do talk to other carriers. We think there's potential for 1, maybe 2 more carriers in our market. And we go meet with them on a regular basis. And the conference in 2 weeks is airline speed dating. It's a great way to meet with airlines. We did one in March. We met with 8 different airlines, and we're meeting with 5 in 2 weeks. Yes, we do meet with our current carriers because it's hard to get time with them. But we do talk to Southwest. We talk to Breeze. We talked to Avelo. We've been talking to Sun Country. Sun Country has expressed interest in potentially coming back. Breeze is another new airline that we're high on their list, but they're not doing a lot on the West Coast just yet. And Alaska, Avelo, and American are talking about other expansion opportunities. So it's just unfortunately taking time, and I wish it went a lot faster because we have a lot of desires and needs. But we're not going to be, I look at, people ask how big, that is a concern. We're a regional airport. We have San Francisco, Oakland, Sacramento within a relatively close drive. We're not going to be able to compete with that. They're not going to shrink because we add stuff. We're going to have a few flights, and the general plan has a limit of 21 departures per day. And we have a little bit of room under that. And right now we'll have to see where that takes us. But I see Santa Barbara as kind of about our potential size. I think they have about 28 to 30 flights a day, a few more destinations than us, but that's about where I see us because of our proximity to these other airports.
Yeah, you would think with the ridership coming up after COVID and the other small airports going down, and you being positioned well, you kind of got ahead of the game, but the market is whatever the market is, right?
Going back to that small aircraft problem, between American, United, and Delta, there's still over 100 aircraft of the small jets that are parked because they don't have the crews to man them.
So Scott, that gives you something you could do probably. I mean, I understand they're taking anybody now. Anyway, I see Eric's got his hand up. Eric, got a question?
Yeah, I have two questions. Relative number, are you actively attempting to acquire adjoining property on the west, north, or south sides, number one? And number two, as a realtor, do you have any recommendations as to where I can find information for disclosure as to flight patterns for properties that are sold in your sphere of influence?
We're not actively acquiring property. When we did our master plan update in 2012, we identified key parcels adjacent to the airport. They're not needed for operational purposes, but they're desired for buffer or obstruction clearance. I believe we have 20 to 22 properties identified in that, and they are on a voluntary basis. So as they come up for sale, we will make an effort to acquire them, but with it being voluntary, we're not going to compel them to do it. We have about an 85% success rate when we start those negotiations. We've been able to acquire property once every other year, about that ratio. On the disclosures, the Kermit Sonoma website has the airport land use plan, the Airport Land Use Commission. And there's the airport land use plan. And in there, they have our flight paths and noise contours. That is a good document. And we also have some of that information on the airport webpage.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Anybody else out there with a question for Jon?
I have one. Jon, when I was there recently traveling, I noticed that the longer term parking has numbers. And then I got worried when I was there that you guys had moved to the, where you have to reserve your parking spaces. What's the model going to be as you guys move forward?
The numbering is there for inventory control.
Okay.
That way we can keep track, and it's also a tool for passengers to, take a picture of the number, know where they parked. We do have an app. So if you wanted to reserve, you can. It's increased in popularity. That way you're guaranteed you'll be able to, because we do fill up a couple times a year, but you'll be guaranteed a spot in the lots. But we don't have a reserve space per se. We tried that program. It was not well received, so we're not doing that, going that far. We also have added almost 100 additional spaces on Airport Boulevard and Flightline Drive for street parking using the app to pay for parking there. So that is our overflow. And it'll help a lot once we get the rental cars out of our lots, because they take up about 200 spaces on the airport. But we're not planning on changing the model. And during COVID, we tried to go as touchless as much as possible. So that's why we went to the app. And so far this year, we have not filled up. We may come close over the 4th of July. Labor Day is another time, and Thanksgiving. But we do have good news. Doesn't help so much for Healdsburg and North, but we've been working with Smart, and June 12th, they will be launching the Smart Connect shuttle, and we've partnered with them to brand it the Smart Way to Fly. It'll be an on-demand or a reserved shuttle bus that'll bring people to the airport from the Airport Boulevard train station or anywhere within 1.5 miles of that station. So that'll be running Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we'll be doing a ribbon cutting for that June. It's like a day or two before they officially start. So that's been a hugely demanded item, and I'm hoping we can get more people to use the train. It looks close on a map, but that 1.1 miles to the train station, it's a little long when you're pulling a suitcase.
Yeah. Eric, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Anybody else out there with a question? If not, we'd like to thank you, Jon, for your presentation. Very insightful and a lot of information we wouldn't have known otherwise. And such an important part of the economic community here for Sonoma County. We really appreciate everything you've done. Looks beautiful, like your artistic touch, even if it is limited to Snoopy.
Just one more quick thing.
I'm sorry, you're done.
Just remember, I'll send to Jon, but in the 1930s, Miller Packing Company promoted their fruit deliveries with a label called the Spirit of Healdsburg, which is a rendition of the Spirit of St. Louis that Charles Lindbergh flew, and they promoted it as quite a bit of promoting Healdsburg and their fruit packing. Just an interesting historic document that I'll send to Jon, and I'll send to Talia also.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jon.
All right. Thank you.
Looking forward to visiting you at the airport.
Have a great day.
Next up, I've got Mayor Kelly, but I don't see her on there. So maybe we'll slip right into Jeff Kay and let him give us an idea of what's going on down at City Hall.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Apologies on behalf of the mayor. She sent me a note late last night that she had conflict pop up. So she apologizes and wanted to be here and do an update. I'll try to cover for her a few things going on that I wanted to touch on. We have a lot going on. Don't think I need to say much about it, but thanks for everybody who participated in the great parade and FFA weekend last week. Summer's definitely officially here. The eyeball test for our team was we had more people out there than last year. So coming out of COVID, things seem to be normalizing. And it was a lot of fun and a good way to bring the community together. So it was nice to see a lot of you out there. Tuesday concerts are back as of 2 days ago. So Sunday concerts coming shortly. So lots going on in terms of programming for the summer. We also have a few projects. This is the time of year when the weather's good that we can get some construction type things done, and some things are just coming to a head. So small stuff, but I just wanted to flag it. We're doing a pretty significant upgrade at the senior center right now. That's been closed for a couple of weeks while we're redoing the access doors, both the front and the back, and some of the work on a kiosk and some carpeting and things like that. That'll open up again next week. So it's been years in the making with our senior commission pushing hard. So that's happening. Our permit center here at City Hall has been closed for several weeks while that gets reconfigured in a way that we think will work a lot better for people. That's just about done. This parking lot where we get resurfaced on Healdsburg Avenue across from Christo, which has been delayed. So all relatively minor things, but I hope you're all noticing that we're trying to crank out a few projects that we've been trying to get done for some time. In terms of bigger projects, the council approved construction for a preschool at the community center, which needed pretty massive upgrades for a couple of rooms due to licensing requirements, which triggered fire sprinklers and EDA. And that is under construction and going well, so should be done, I think, in about a month. And we hope to have kids in there this fall. We're going out to bid shortly for Fitch Mountain access improvements, which includes trail access, ADA improvements there, restrooms, we hope, dog park improvements. That's try number 2. The first one came in with just one bidder, way over budget, so I'm a little nervous, but hopefully we reconfigured things so that project will work. And we'll be out to bid in the next month for the Foley Family Pavilion at 3 North and the fire substation, 2 things that I know have been in the works forever. I'm nervous about costs. We're just seeing absolutely explosive cost increase. I expect a lot of you are seeing that in your business. But it's threatening the budget on pretty much every one of these projects, so we'll just have to see how they come in. We're trying to get a strong pool of bidders. In government world, you have to take the low bid or you don't do the project. So we're trying to structure our bids in ways where we have some options when those come back, and we can move some pieces around and try and get those projects happening. But it's definitely a theme, is that it's absolutely explosive growth in construction project costs. In terms of just a couple things to note for upcoming city council meetings, the council will be considering new electric rates on Monday evening. I know Mayor Kelly mentioned this last month too. It's been pretty quiet, but we are looking, unfortunately, at double-digit rate increases. We haven't done that in a few years. So part of it's just catch up in an era where we've had 5-ish% annual inflation. There's also been pretty nasty expansion in inflation and the cost of pure energy statewide. So we don't like to see relatively large rates, but they are likely coming. So I just want to be forthcoming with everybody. We're close to 50% cheaper for electric cost here in Healdsburg than PG&E or Sonoma Clean Power, so much cheaper than all of our neighbors. And the vast majority of that should remain. That's our projection, is that we eat away at that just a tiny bit, but probably be about 40% cheaper still. And they're facing the same inflation factors that we are. So that's the good news, but I can only sugarcoat increases so much. I do just want to make sure people are aware that conversation is coming, and if there are concerns or interests, that people pay attention. A little bit more fun on the 20th, the second meeting in June. There's a proposal to a creative artistic piece at the top of Fitch Mountains is related to those access improvements I talked about. And the council will be asked to consider public art grants. This is something that was a big push with our public art master plan last year. Start supporting that. So we have $50,000 available, and the committee has made recommendations for a number of public art projects. So we're excited to see that move forward. And there's also been quite a bit of news about, or discussion about, a safe storage of firearms ordinance, something that was brought up a couple months ago, and a few cities around the area have been doing this, and the council will be considering that on June 20th also. So it's one of the few places where local city governments have some control, but we do in that instance. So that's something that people may want to pay attention to. Finally, draft actions for our climate mobilization strategy will be coming back on June 20th. Not an action item at that point, just a discussion. But this, in my mind, is where the rubber hits the road. There are some very ambitious goals out there for greenhouse gas reductions. What exactly do you do about it is the hard part. And so we've been doing a lot of community outreach, a lot of surveys, and staff and a consultant will be putting forth some ideas on what that could look like at that meeting. So, a lot of it is where we get our electricity, which might have a cost impact, but doesn't necessarily impact people on a day-to-day basis. But there's also electrification of buildings, which could. So it's one of those things that people might, I could see the commercial and the business community being impacted by some of that in the long term. So I'd recommend everybody pay attention. So lots going on. We do not have every year council meetings in July, so I'm looking forward to a month to try to get caught up. But we do have 2 very busy meetings in June. Happy to take questions.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody out there with a question? I have seen a little bit, Jeff, of what looks like some homeless encampments encroaching into town. Like, think there's a trailer just down from City Hall that I've seen, seems to be there all the time. What are the city rules for things like that?
Well, it depends on what it is. If it's a vehicle, we do not have the ability to differentiate between vehicles that people sleep in and vehicles that are just vehicles. So it's subject to the 72-hour parking restrictions. With that said, please call us. We're aware. I believe we have 2 in town that we're, I don't want to say chasing around, but keeping an eye on. And they're generally adhering to that 72-hour restriction, but we stay on it. And if people can let us know when they see that, we'll get out there and make sure we're watching it. If it's the 2 I'm aware of, then we're kind of on them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure you're aware of it. It looks like a trailer, actually. Yeah.
So those, but when in doubt, let us know, please. And the police department, there's that. When you see camping, it's a different set of rules, but also please let us know. It really depends on what it is and where it is. But generally, overnight camping is not permitted in the city. It tends to pop up on the smart right-of-way, which can take a little bit longer to address. And we also have, all of the legal restrictions we've talked about in the past. But when I say a little bit longer, it still usually means a matter of days. Days. So we usually notice when these things pop up, and they do continually pop up. But when in doubt, police non-emergency, let us know. We'll try to be as quick in addressing things as we can.
They contact City Hall or they contact the police department?
Ultimately, it's going to go to police non-emergency, so that's what I'd recommend. But we passed out. We have these little cards we try to pass out to businesses. But when in doubt, you all know how to find us, and just let somebody know, and we'll get it to the right.
Okay, great. Eric? Hey, Eric, if you're talking, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Along the homeless side, there's people that park in the parking lot, West Plaza parking lot, that plug into the lamppost at night. Is that enforced? Is that allowable? Can you get a permit to do that?
It is enforced. You cannot get a permit. Perhaps an event could get a permit, but not an individual. I'm not here. I'm sleeping overnight, so I'm not sure what's going on, but I can check in with our team about that. We have been trying to step up enforcement of that lately. I see it a lot less in the daytime because of that. But
it's gone by, when I see it is when I go walking at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's usually gone by business hours.
Yeah, we have been trying to step up enforcement of that.
All right. Anybody else out there? Really? We have Jeff all to ourselves. No city council people to bother him. He can say whatever he wants. Well, we also want to thank you, Jeff. I mean, it's like a little bit like being the headmaster at a private school. Everybody thinks you're working for them, and they all have their own ideas on how it should be done, I'm sure. So we appreciate everything you're doing. Maggie, anything you'd like to bring up?
No, just been busy with the chamber. I know I'm filling in for Talia this morning, but I thought this was super informative to learn more about the airport. It's just a huge impact on our local business in Healdsburg, just seeing not only tourism, but everything. So that was awesome. And Jeff, always great to hear from you. We have a mixer, Jessica, this Thursday at Smith's Story. So encourage anybody to come and enjoy some great wines and get to know other business members in the community. And they're always a lot of fun. It seems to be the weather getting better. We had a great one at Limerick Lane recently. So hope to see you guys there. And Jess, anything else on the event side that we want to give an update on?
You'll be getting a save the date soon, but August 16th is going to be our annual barbecue and business awards back at Rodney Strong. We'll also be sending out the nominations for the business awards soon, and we are going with a luau theme this year. So get your Hawaiian shirts, and I'll be sending out ticket information in the next week or so.
Yeah. I want to say you guys do a great job on that event. I mean, I went last year. Yeah, very nice.
Thank you. And it should be a lot of fun this year too. We're already looking at fun bands, and we're really excited for it.
All right. if there's nothing else out there, I think we are ready to close. I want to thank everybody for showing up. Hope you have a great June. Let's see, we don't have a session next month. Is that right? Are we on every
Not
month?
in July, but we are looking to August. We should have it when we have a few speakers lined up just for actually the next couple of ones. So that should be announced shortly.
Okay, great. Well, have a great summer, you guys. Look forward to seeing you in August.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you,
Bye.
Jess, for setting all this up.
Thank you.